Well, joining me now is Republican Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana. Bill, good to see you, or Senator, good to see you. I want to get your take first. I mean, we heard in Edwards' report that, and we know this, you and I know this, that the Strategic Petroleum Oil Reserve at a 37-year low. We have that reserve for what we see happening in Florida right now, when you have a hurricane hit or a disaster hit, something that's unforeseen, that we can tap into that reserve to shore up American supply. Joe Biden has used it just to drive down prices, and I would argue in anticipation for the midterm elections, trying to help his party. What say you?
I totally agree with you. This is a political move. We should be already planning to refill that reserve, but ideally we would not have had to have tapped into it. We could have increased domestic production. Now, by the way, that portion of our energy economy that Biden does not control, privately held lands, the rig count is up. We're probably producing about 1 million more barrels per month on private lands. We need the president to open up the tap, if you will, on public lands off the coast of Louisiana, Texas, et cetera. That would create American jobs. It would produce more American energy. It would drive down prices, and we could leave the SPR alone.
Yeah, I mean, so Senator, it's a really good point. So you're saying, you know what, if you want to actually bring on more supply, drive down prices, it might be beneficial if you open up more leases around America, not just on private lands, but on federal lands. But instead of doing that, you have Joe Biden saying, you know what, I'm going to attack the mom and pop gas stations that are trying to make a buck selling gas to the American people. I'm going to attack them and tell them to lower prices, as opposed to doing my job and increasing supply.
I find that the president blames people when things are going wrong, and he takes the credit when things are going well. Now, that may be a natural human tendency, but in here, you should really reverse that. The president has been responsible for a scarcity of oil and gasoline in our nation, and now when there's a scarcity, he's blaming others. But then he takes credit when prices come down, even though it is the production on private lands which is increasing supply. It's almost always opposite day when the president talks about oil and gas.
You know, Senator, also, you know, obviously we know the main driver of prices at the pump is crude oil prices, but we also have, you know, local, state, and federal taxes. In the Inflation Reduction Act, Joe Biden and Democrats put an additional tax on crude oil, which in the end drives up the price for American consumers at the pump.
Yeah, it does. But I'll go back, Sean. The key point, we can make our economy stronger. We can have better jobs for the American people, really well-paying jobs, if we just allow production of oil and gas on our public lands. There's been permits sitting at the federal government level for 6 months, 8 months, that had they been permitted, these aren't new leases, these are permits on existing leases. If those permits had been granted, they would already be sending oil and natural gas to be refined onto the shores of Louisiana. Now, that would create American jobs, and it creates American independence, and it also drives down prices. That's what the president has to answer to. They've not done it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. I think because oil prices have come down, a lot of Americans might think that Joe Biden has been part of the solution, but you really have oil traders who see a recession on the horizon and demand go down, not supply up, and therefore prices have come down. It's bad news on the horizon, not good news that it's dropped the price of oil and gas. Senator, I want to turn to Senator Joe Manchin. He was the one holdout in regard to Build Back Better, which actually turned into the Inflation Reduction Act. He flipped his vote, voted for it. A lot of, Green New Deal, parts of the Inflation Reduction Act, made it to the president's desk. But as part of that deal, voting for that package, he had some oil and gas reforms, some pipeline reforms that he wanted, that he was promised. It was a Cornhusker kickback, if you will. Where are Republicans supporting Joe Manchin for the reforms that he got for selling America out and voting for the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a misnomer for a bill?
Now, what I'm told, just saw a tweet that Manchin has asked that the permitting reform be pulled from the vote tonight. So I think that is kind of an indication of what was happening. The pipeline coming out of coming out of West Virginia did really well. Doing transmission across state lines for renewables did very well. Everybody else, we were stuck in that same morass where a petty Democrat, based on her personal ideology, his personal ideology, can crush a program that would mean thousands of jobs and lower energy prices. We need to fix that. We need to have rules that are clear with timelines, enforceable timelines, and unfortunately, Joe's bill didn't do that. We're waiting for that sort of clarity.
You know, and we have breaking news here. Schumer just came out and said that he will not take Manchin's energy provision out of the bill. He's going to take it out so it won't make it across the finish line. And I know that Senator Capito, also from West Virginia, has another bill. She's a Republican that she wants to actually have put into this package that she says, and probably you say, will do a lot more for streamlining the energy process and giving more rights to states and taking it away from, you know, all the litigators.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, wouldn't it have been nice if the process by which Schumer and Manchin came up could have included Republicans on the front end? Maybe some of Shelley's good stuff could have been put in there. Then we would have a permitting reform that would have passed. It's not the way it's supposed to work. It was kind of a backroom deal. Unfortunately, it's fallen apart. Well, you know, fortunately, it's fallen apart, but unfortunately, we will not have permitting reform that is real.
You know, Senator, I always look to you when I talk about health care. We think about health care. You're a doctor, but, you know, you're from Louisiana, an energy state. You know that energy sector really well. Thanks for joining me today and giving me your perspective on energy and what's going to happen in the Senate with regard to Senator Manchin. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.